The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are coming to you from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And there's Card's number right there on the screen for you. Thank you, Traven. So we've got a great show planned for you today. We've got some amazing guests and we're really thrilled to be here with you. Before we get started, we want to make sure that you know that this entire hour is meant to be interactive. We want to hear from you. We want to know your thoughts, feelings, questions, and concerns. So Traven's going to show you some of the different ways that you can connect with us here. I do want to remind you that we do have a website and that there are a lot of amazing things on our website. It's autism-live.com. You can write in on the live feature there. You can watch our archives there. It's all for free. You can check out our toy guide there. You can ask questions. So there's a lot to do on the website, but there are other ways to connect because we know that everybody is functioning on different, you might have your iPad with you, you might have your Kindle Fire, everybody has different ways that they prefer to connect. So we're also on Facebook and we come to you live on Facebook. So please like us on Facebook and, check it out on Facebook and we converse with people on Facebook. But, Traven's showing you all the different things there. There are some things that I particularly like about when different sites, and you guys may be noticing this too, that when you're on our home site, if you write in a question on the chat, and you can do that because there's a chat button at the bottom of the screen, it's completely anonymous. Nobody gets to see that you asked the question except for me. I don't get to know who you are. So, I know sometimes you're like, oh, I want to ask this question, but I don't want to be putting as a friend of mine used to say, I don't want to put my business on the streets, right? I don't want everybody to know that my child's having a problem with toilet training. And, for whatever reason. So when you want it to be totally anonymous and you don't even want me to know, send it through our website, go to our chat, and I'll be able to see that. Even if you write it in at 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm not here, I can check it in the morning and see that it's there. On Facebook, what's really cool is you get other people interacting, and sometimes you get other parents who are like, hey, I tried this and this works. Same thing on YouTube. We have great parents on YouTube and individuals who are on the autism spectrum who write in on our live YouTube stream and say, hey, I don't agree with Shannon. And that's okay, by the way. We welcome that here, because if we can't be a place where we welcome all opinions and discourse here at Autism Live, then really what are we doing, right? So I know sometimes you guys get upset. I love that people are sometimes protective of me and they're like, oh, Shannon's not going to be happy that somebody disagreed with her. If you knew me, you'd know that that's not the case. I kind of groove on that. I kind of groove on, well, let's have the conversation. The day that I think that I have it all figured out is the day that we're done. It's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. I like having my mind expanded. Hey, I'm a former teacher. And if I can't learn on a given day, then I don't know what I'm doing, right? So I love to learn. Feel free, disagree with me, educate me. I live for that. So, which leads me to my next thing that, on this show, I want you to know we have lots of experts and I've got them for you today. And I love having those experts so that you guys can ask questions. And the truth is you can ask me questions too, but let's be honest here. Me, not an autism expert. I'm just not. And I'm very honest about that with everybody. And I just want to remind you of that on a regular basis. Do I have an informed opinion that I'm willing to share? Yes, of course I am. I have been in the autism community as a parent for 12 years now. and I've been covering autism from a sort of journalistic standpoint. I just realized I think I've been in the autism community for 14 years. Just like all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, no, it's not 12 anymore. Hello, it's more like 14 years. And because my math wasn't adding up in my head, and I've been covering autism from a journalistic, in some format like this, a show where I interview experts for it's like almost 12 years now. So that's why the math wasn't adding up. I was like, no, I didn't start covering the first 6 months that we were in. So in any case, my point is that yes, I like to think of myself as having an informed opinion. That's all it is, not an expert. Okay, I just like to remind everybody that. But because I know people write in and say, Shannon, you haven't been saying it for a while. We get through this together. We hold hands. Si se puede. Right? We can do this. But we got to hold hands together and be there to support each other because, you can't do this by yourself. And you got to start with that knowledge and accept that as truth. Like that's the bottom line. You can't do this by yourself. You're going to need some help and support, right? And that's okay. There's nothing to be embarrassed or ashamed about because we all need a little help and support. And you know what? When we all get there together, it's sweeter, right? So don't feel hesitant and don't feel bad about yourself if you don't have this figured out. Because really, nobody has the whole thing figured out. This person has this little piece over here, and this person has this little piece, then this, because we all need something different. How can you possibly figure the whole thing out? So come on, I'm giving you a hug. Today, we go there together, but don't feel like you got to get there all on your own, all right? We'll get there together. Okay, so something we like to do on Mondays that we do every Monday, we fondly refer to it as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani nani are the experts talking about. We give you the actual definition. Often we make fun of it. I agree to that because it's what else can you do with those definitions, right? And then we give you a working definition and hopefully an example that helps you to begin to understand what the thing is. Maybe not totally, but you're working your way towards it, right? So we don't have to be overwhelmed. I don't know about you, but I'm overwhelmed enough in my life. I've reached critical mass on that, and I don't need to be overwhelmed anymore. So we just take it a little bit at a time. My friend who says, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So this is just taking one bite at a time. So on Thursday, somebody wrote in and said, could you please add to your jargon RBT and BCAT. And so on Thursday we did RBT, and what do we have today? BCAT. Ready? So that's it. Today's jargon term, BCAT. What does it stand for? It stands for Board Certified Autism Technician. There you go. That's what BCAT stands for. There it is right there. Board Certified Autism Technician. Doesn't that sound interesting? Okay, so let's take a look at what our working definition is to see if we can't crack the code a little bit. A BCAT is an individual who has proven competency in the principles of ABA in relation to what? Autism. So let's harken back to Thursday where we did RBT, which is Registered Behavior Technician, and that person has demonstrated competency in the principles of ABA. Not necessarily in the field of autism, because ABA is this big global thing. It's a science where you learn the principles of it. And it's a big science, right? So RBT knows the basics and has demonstrated competency with that. But a BCAT understands the basic principles of ABA as it applies to autism. So you're a parent and you've got a kiddo who's on the autism spectrum, and you go to ABA provider and they give you therapists, and you might have 2 or 4 or more, depending on how many hours of therapy you're doing. Sidebar, do your full prescription. Like whatever the doctor wrote the prescription for, do the full prescription. If you don't think the doctor wrote it for enough, go to another doctor. Because if they're not in school yet, push for 40. That's what the science shows to be effective, right? Okay, back to talking about a BCAT. So they put a team together of therapists to work with your kiddo, and being a reasonable parent, you ask, what are the qualifications of these people? And you're going to find that it varies from provider to provider, but what you want on your team are people who are either RBTs or BCATs or working their way to do that. Because, welcome young people who don't yet have that designation, but ask them, do you already know about this, and are you working to get this designation? Now, some of your insurance won't pay for a therapist unless they're an RBT or a BCAT. They just won't pay for it. They're like, if we're paying for it, we want this person to have at least these qualifications. And I don't disagree with that. The problem with those insurance companies is that they're not willing to assume any cost for them to get there. And I don't know how they expect a young person to get there. For the amount of therapists we need, it's a little bit short-sighted, right? If they paid for them to train to get the RBT, then I would be all over it. I'd be like, that's really good. But in any case, I think it's important to know who on your team has these designations and who is working towards them. And I also want to say that there's specific training that's for RBT, there's specific training that's for BCAT. The only place that I know of that melds the two together, so that if somebody takes the training, they're getting both what you would get in the RBT and what you get in the BCAT to be ready to take the test and to do the other things that qualify for you, these designations. The only place that I know of that allows you to do both at the same time is the Institute for Behavioral Training. And I really want to encourage parents that those trainings are available to everybody. Even if you are like, well, I don't really need to be a board certified autism technician, okay, because maybe you're not going to work in the field of autism. This is how I felt about it, by the way. I was like, well, I'm not going to go and do therapy. I have other things that I'm going to do, so I'm not really going to go do therapy and bill for it, right? But I still wanted to know what a BCAT knows. Don't you? Shouldn't we? Wouldn't that be the best thing for our kids if we knew what a BCAT knew? Because I want to be able to do it at home. I want to be able to speak intelligently here on the show about what a BCAT knows and doesn't know. So you can take the classes, and it's very inexpensive to take the classes to get you ready to take the test. It's not that expensive to take the test. I took the BCAT test. I passed the BCAT test. I'm just saying. So am I a BCAT? No. Do I know what a BCAT knows? I think so. I passed the test. I haven't done all the other things that a BCAT does, but I wanted to know as a parent, and I'm saying to you, if I had a young child who was starting therapy, I am just going to tell you, the first thing I would do is I would run to ibehavioraltraining.com, and I would sign up to do the coursework that is both the RBT and the BCAT. Maybe if I was younger and my child was just starting, maybe I would go ahead and go so far as to get the designations. You don't have to do a lot afterwards. Talk to them about what you would have to do to be able to get those designations. But if I was thinking that someday I might want a job as a therapist, you betcha, I would have gotten those designations. I know lots of wonderful parents who said, hey, I know I'm going to have to put the time in for my kid anyway, so why not make it worthwhile? I'm going to get the certification, and that way if I want to work in this field later on, I've already got, yeah, I totally agree with that. But I think it's worthwhile to, if you're going to do it, why not do both at the same time? And because I do think that the RBT, a part of it, which is knowing the basics of ABA, essential, right? But then if you're going to work in the field of autism, you should know how to apply that to autism, which means doing both. For instance, if you have a therapist who's working at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders at CARD, where my child was treated, they're encouraged to do them both at the same time for that very reason. But I think it's important to start with, if you're not at CARD, even if you are at CARD, ask your therapist. So are you an RBT, a BCAT, both, or are you studying to do those things? Because that's what you want to hear. You want to hear that they're studying to do that. I always wanted to make sure that my therapists were working and growing and knowing what they needed to know. So there you go. That's BCAT. Go and get your BCAT certification. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I encourage you to get that at ibehavioraltraining.com, and that's not a commercial. That's where I did it, so I can speak effectively to that. All right, moving on. We always have a question of the day, and our question to you today, I know I'm asking you guys random questions, but my question today is, what's your favorite TV show of all time, and why? Like, what is it still on? Is it like, is there something that you watch? Like, for instance, gosh, if I had to do my favorite show of all time, it would have to be West Wing, right? West Wing was so amazing. And yeah, and last year on the red carpet at D.A.M.E.S, we got to have like a mini West Wing reunion, and I all but lost my mind, right? That was pretty fabulous. We are going to talk about last night's D.A.M.E later on in the week. So I'm not going to divert there yet. But I would have to say West Wing, right? But there are so many great shows on now that I love. I do love television. I was raised in television. My father was a technical director for television. And, you know, my husband's an actor. I used to be an actress. I love television in all of its forms. So, and it's there. It's not free anymore. But it's there and it's available, and I think it shapes a lot of what we do in our lives now. So I want to know from you, what's your favorite TV show of all time? What did you love about it? What is it about it that made you want to tune in or still tune in? Like my sister's favorite show of all time is the Gilmore Girls, and she still watches the Gilmore Girls every day. I don't do that, but you know, I think people have different viewing preferences. So what do you watch? What are you watching all the time? And included in that, I think one of my favorite things right now, I have really, over the years, I would watch a show here or there on Netflix, and I'd watch a show here or there on Amazon, and get into it and really like it. And I don't know what it is about this year, but my husband and I have gone down the well on certain shows and watched. Now it's one of my favorite things to ask people. So what are you watching? Like, what's affecting your world? And I gotta say, it's been super awesome to say to somebody, what are you watching? And then go watch it and then have conversations with them about it. I have seen some amazing things in the last couple of months. Some of my highlights, my husband and I, we watched the OA, which was pretty intense, and we thoroughly enjoyed that. I'm trying to think, Fleabag. Oh my gosh, I watched Fleabag before it won at the Emmys, but that's only for adults. Make sure only adults are watching that. I went from Fleabag to Dear White People because somebody here on the show said to me, oh, good show, amazing show. Then I went to The Man in the High Castle. Stop. If anybody's watching that, I need therapy. I need people to talk to about that. See, like there's a things that we can connect on. So I got to find the new things. So if there's something I should be watching, write in right now and tell me what it is I should be watching that I have not included in this lineup. There's some things that I never got around to watching, like I never saw The Sopranos. I never saw Orange is the New Black. And, you know, so write in and tell me what you think I should be watching. Let's talk about it. So we always have a topic of the week. Our topic for this week, and what I loved about this was the staff came back after I wrote this to them and they're like, is this a misprint? Did you mean finding safe places to fall, Shannon? And I was like, nope, I meant finding safe places to fail. Because this is the truth, you guys. We all need to practice things before we get good at them, right? And before we succeed. So the thing that we want to do as parents, and the thing that we want to do for ourselves and for our loved ones, is to find safe places in which to fail. And I gotta say, there's a method to my madness here, because we're getting ready to unleash our toy guide, and that's what toys are. That's what leisure time is, a safe place to fail. So, you know, when our kids are on the playground and they're trying to figure out how, you know, I want to play this game and you want to play that game, and how are we going to succeed at this? And it doesn't always work. And the kids get mad and somebody throws sand, and we would call that a failure, right? And by the way, I don't entirely believe in failure. I believe in, you know, going, okay, well, that's, as they would say here, that's a data point. That's like, oh, we know that didn't work, so now we know to try something else. It's just a stop on the path to success, right? Nothing is truly a failure if you use it to go to the next step, right? So we need to fail. We need to fail, and we need to be able to fail on a regular basis at everything. I think of my son, and when he was learning how to talk again after losing the ability to talk, he had a lot of failures. He had a lot of times where what he was trying to convey didn't make it, and he would get frustrated, right? And we had to give him a safe place in which to do that, because then he would go and do it with his friends and it felt worse, right? And it felt worse because he wasn't making the friends at a certain point. But we gave him a safe place to fail, which then propels you on to the next thing, because if you're safe when you fail, then you're not afraid to try again. And that is what we know works. In fact, that's one of the basic principles of ABA, is that you have to have lots of opportunity, that you learn after lots and lots and lots of opportunity, which means you had to have a safe place in which to not get it right. So how do we do that for ourselves? How do we do that for our kiddos? How do we make a place in which we aren't expected to always hit it out of the park? I get so angry when people talk about, oh, this society that we've built that, where everybody gets a trophy. I don't know. I feel like everybody should get a trophy because life is hard enough, right? But in addition to that, we have to make a safe place for our kids to fail. We have to show by example, if we mess up, that we're like, oh, that didn't go the way I meant for it to go. And so I'm going to try it this way instead, and model that for our kids and congratulate them on the attempt. I feel like that's the way that we should be going in. We see with ABA that that's what works. So, I put it to you. How do we find a safe place to fail? How do you find that place for your kiddo? Last week was so rough here. We had so many things that went wrong. And if we had put our heads down over the years, oh my gosh, things have gone wrong while we're doing a live show. I can't even shake a stick at that many things, right? And we had to learn to just be like, well, our mission here is to give out that information and inspiration. We're not always going to get it right. But if we keep trying, then the sum total of it hopefully is something that's worthwhile. So how do you do that for your life? I'm still trying to figure that out, because I'll be honest with you. I don't know why, but at some point along the line, autism taught me things about, that it isn't just the destination, that it's the journey. Autism taught me that I got to be appreciative of every single gain. Every single thing that happens has to be appreciated, right? And that everything isn't going to go right. It's that thing of when the plane takes off from Los Angeles and it's going to New York, over 50% of the time that plane is off course. But why does it actually land in New York City? Because it course corrects. It goes, oh, look, we're off course again. Let's move back. Oh, we're off course again. And it just course corrects, so they land. And autism taught that to me. Having a child who's on the spectrum taught me that, that's what it is. Stop getting emotional every time you're slightly off, just course correct. Oh, that's evidence that we're off course. Let's move over here. Let's, and in the beginning I would get so emotional about it, you guys, because I didn't feel safe. I didn't know we were going to get to the outcome. And once I knew that I was in a safe space, and really that came when I got to CARD. And I saw my child making progress, and it took me a while to believe that these people had me and had him. It took me a while. And then something would happen, I'd be like, I don't think you have me. And they'd go, yep, we do. Look, we're here with you. We have you. And then it was a safe place for us to not always have it right and to grow. And that is what you got to do for yourself and what you got to do for your kiddo. It's the thing that propels you to the success. So it's not a safe place to fall. It's a safe place to fail. Embrace the failure. I don't even like to call it failure, because it just embrace the journey. And the journey means you're not going to get it right a whole bunch of times. And life goes on, right? Okay, so that's our topic. So what are we doing today on today's show? We've got the amazing Bonnie Yates, who's going to be with us answering your questions. And then wait till you guys see Michele Thorne, an amazing mom. She's the founder of D.A.M.E.S, which is differently abled mothers, empower, you took it away, Traven, and now I can't read it. Empowerment Society, that's what it is. So in any case, that's what's coming up, all of that and more after these messages.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
Welcome back, everyone, to Autism Live. We are being joined right now by the fabulous and wonderful Bonnie Yates. She's a special education attorney with the law firm of Hirji and Chow. And Bonnie, welcome back to the show. Can you tell us a little bit about Hirji and Chow, how we can get a hold of you there? And then let's do the disclaimer, shall we?
All right, we're going to do it all.
Okay.
All right, Hirji and Chow is a special education law firm in Southern California. We do special education, regional center, disability discrimination, and higher education. Our phone number is 310-391-0330, and the website, as you can see, is lawyer4children.com. We're going to be talking today about private school placement and maybe injuries at school if we get that far. But when we talk to you on the air or we answer your questions on the air, it's important to understand we're trying to educate you generally about your legal rights and not able to answer specific questions specifically on the air. So if you have a specific situation that's making you think you need to talk to a lawyer, you probably should do that. You should probably have a specific consultation with a lawyer in your state that does special education. And for that, I refer you to COPA, www.copa.net. That's a good source, an attorney directory of special education attorneys in the 50 states.
Okay, so as I recall last week where we left everybody on a cliffhanger. So
Yeah.
we were talking about how you get reimbursed for putting your child in a in a private school. And you were emphasizing how important it is that you have to follow certain rules. And the first rule is that you have to give a 10 business day notice that your child is going to start somewhere else. Have I got that right?
You almost did. You almost did.
Almost.
You corrected yourself and said business,
Yes.
which was very good. So the backdrop against which these cases occur is never like the facts you would have if you were writing a law review article. So usually by the time a parent is ready to put their child in a private or a non-public school, there's been kind of a continuing crisis. And potentially there may have been a lot of IEP meetings at which the parent slowly realizes that having these IEP meetings and these discussions isn't going to fix the problem. And then the parent starts looking around either with suggestions from the attorney or suggestions from other people at other schools. And then the parent has this realization that they're going to have to put their child in a non-public or private school. And that's a very unpleasant aha experience because, first of all, not everybody has the ability to pay the tuition, even if they get reimbursed. And second of all, people oftentimes are very upset because they have moved to a particular neighborhood or gotten into a particular school, and then they're really disappointed at what actually is available there. So it's a big issue, and not all parents are even able to participate in the system. Many of the ones who have told me how stressful it is on their entire family to assume this burden of paying the tuition and then suing the district to get reimbursed. It's not pleasant. Hopefully, some of that is offset by the child or student settling down, doing better, feeling better. That can be quite validating for parents, but that's not to say that it's easy. Now, I want to make a comment before I talk about legally how you do this, and that's just to say that you can probably go to an IEP till you're blue in the face and tell the district why you need a non-public school, and the district will say that's wholly speculative and your child is doing fine where he or she is. Now, the IEP team can't offer private school, but they can offer non-public school. And I tell people, and they aren't very happy about this feedback, that your position, if you want to get a non-public or a private school, is going to be much stronger once your student has been in that school than if your student is standing on the outside looking in and hoping it's going to be better when they get there. And that's because when your student is in public school has the ability to create report cards and artificially inflate grades and make it look as if things are going better than they are. And that allows them to argue at the IEP meeting that the student is making progress from year to year. But what we find a lot of the time, not 100% of the time, but a large percent of the time, I'd say at least 80% of the time, if not more, when we take the student out of public school and we put him in a non-public or a private school, he starts to do better because it's more appropriately tailored for his needs. But the balance of power also shifts because all of a sudden the public school educators don't have their eyes on that student every day, and the main witnesses who know what your student's needs are the non-public or private school educators. So as you can imagine, that changes the complexion of any interaction you have with the district, because now you're able to show the district that you've got people that can testify that John can do way better than he was doing in public school, which is kind of an after-the-fact proof of the idea that the district didn't offer FAPE. So does that make sense, that your position will be stronger if you can place the student rather than waiting around until you can convince the district that they should place a student, a day which may never come?
So what I'm hearing is, if you really want to do this and be successful at it, the best way to do it is to give the 10-day notice, move your child to the other school, and to demonstrate that they are doing better, which means you have to take a leap of faith and you're going to have to pay some money up front for them to go to the other school, correct?
I think that was a good all-around synopsis, and I want to refine that a little bit.
Okay.
In most of the cases that I do as a practical matter, I don't really think they're rolling out this way, but if they could roll out this way, this would make for a stronger case. So, when people come here to the office and they talk about what they want to do with me, I basically say, listen, If what you're looking for is some tweaks of your IEP, that's probably something you can accomplish. You might not even need a lawyer to do that. You might be able to do that with an advocate. But my general impression is that most times more is required than tweaks of the IEP. And if more than that is required, and you're going to go to due process, you need to have an expert. You cannot do due process without an expert, people. It will not work. And this isn't only for private school cases, but in this context, the ideal record would be one in which the evaluator tests the student and then makes educational recommendations based on the testing, and that goes into a report, and that information is presented to the district, and then the student is placed. Or even if that information isn't presented, that information is collected so that when it comes time after the fact to justify the parent's decision-making process, parent can say, I didn't shop for this school, I got expert information based on testing and observation of my child in public school. So the first thing we would love to have would be that expert. And we've talked on this show about how you get a private evaluation paid for at public expense. And unless you're going to pay for your evaluation yourself, you're going to need that for your private school case. So that's the first thing I think that would be great to have happen, although a lot of the time, in fact, what I'm dealing with is parent is picking, and then I'm trying to figure out how I can substantiate the choice. Okay, second thing that has to happen, notice, okay? There's a very specific statute. It's 20 USC 1415. I'll give you the full reference later in the show. But that's the section that talks about how you give notice. It's very clear it has to be 10 business days notice. So you need to give 10 business days notice in writing of the reasons you're going to remove your student from public school. And you need to not only say where they're going, you need to talk about why the district's offer didn't provide FAPE, maybe refer to some evidence that you have about why the student didn't make progress, which is you're showing that you will make in order to explain why the student didn't receive a FAPE, and you wait until you get a response from the public school to see whether or not they're going to try to hold an IEP meeting before the 10 business days elapse. So
it's rare that they do.
It's rare that they do, and I will also tell you, let's see, what's a way that I can say what I want to say, but not really say what I want to say. What I want to say is I think long and hard about who I send the notice to. And sometimes if I want to send the notice to somebody that I don't think is going to do anything about it, I think about that. But if you send it to the assistant principal, you send it to your student's teacher, you send it to the superintendent, or you send it to the head of special education, whether they actually do something or not is going to be their responsibility because they are responsible for dealing with that information.
So hold up just a second there, Bonnie, Ms. Bonnie Yates. So are we saying that you just have to give notice and that could be to anyone at the school? Or does it have to be somebody on the IEP team?
At the school, but I did say the student's teacher, the assistant principal, the principal, or the head of special ed, or potentially the superintendent. I don't think anybody in those positions could reasonably say, well, I got this, but I was busy, so I didn't do anything about it. That's, once you've sent the notice and to the correct address, and you can use email, as long as it's received, and the 10 business days go by and nobody contacts you to try to get you to participate in an IEP meeting, you're done with the notice provision.
Okay.
Now, we talked about that there are some exceptions. If harm would come to the student by requiring the requisite 10 business days to pass. We also have in the same statute another option, which is you don't have to give the 10 business days notice if you are at an IEP meeting and you give the notice. So the way I read the law, if you're in an IEP meeting on Tuesday and your student is going off to, you know, Hollywood Hills prep on Friday, and you tell the IEP team at the IEP meeting, I'm giving you notice that I'm privately placing on Friday, and here are my reasons. It appears to me that the 10 business day notice requirement is waived because all the team members are at an IEP meeting, and you have somebody there arguably that has expertise and authority to make decisions, and so they could cure that right then and there.
Okay.
They could say, hey, this is really concerning. We've got some really other important options that we need to explore for you. So let's talk about all of that. So that's another exception to the 10 business days notice.
Interesting.
But you have to give one or the other, and you have to do it right.
Okay.
So that's something to know about that. And then we get into the next phase of this, which is talking about how we prove that the district's offer was inappropriate and that the private or non-public placement was appropriate.
Okay. We've got about 6 minutes. Do you want to get into that?
Okay. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Okay, so how do you prove that the district's placement isn't appropriate? Well, if you put the same person in a different educational environment and their performance improves significantly, that shows that the district underestimated their potential or didn't instruct appropriately, and the student made de minimis progress. When you put a student in a non-public or a private school, I'm always concerned about having correct current baseline data, because I'm going to try to show progress over time, and I can't do that unless I have a baseline. So there are a couple of ways to get baselines. I mean, you can get them from the IEP in theory, but you have to be confident that the IEP or the district assessments are accurate. I usually get my baselines from the psychoeducational evaluation that I've had done by the outside psychologist. Sometimes the school can do their own pre and post testing. That's okay, but it would obviously be better if somebody else established the baselines, only because there's an argument, I suppose, to be made that these baselines could be self-serving and the private school's trying to keep it itself in business and they're not objective. I don't know. I mean, I haven't encountered that much, but it occurs to me that that's an argument I would make in that situation. So you get your baseline data, and then you're going to need at least 3 months of improvement before you can go back to the district and initiate the due process, go to mediation, and have settlement discussions. A week at a new place is meaningless. If the student's doing well, it's arguably a honeymoon effect. So typically we tell clients that they need at least 3 months of good data before we have an IEP meeting and we present that to the team. As a practical matter, these cases can take 3 months, they can take 6 months, they can take a year, or they can take even longer. And sometimes what happens is things get delayed. And there are always good reasons for the delay, but during the delay, the parents are continuing to pay. And as the dollar amounts get higher and higher, I think parents get more and more stressed.
Yeah.
But when the progress is good, and you go back to the IEP team, and the IEP team sees what's happening, it's not necessarily the case that they're going to agree to pay at that IEP. They're still going to see how serious you are about pushing this forward. But oftentimes, if you file for due process and you have a record like that, when you go to mediation, the district is going to be willing to have settlement discussions with you. And I have been talking about this in terms of a place like a school, but this would apply just as much to non-public agency services, speech and language counseling, ABA, and so on, or private services. The thought process is the same. The legal analysis and the legal rationale is more or less the same. And then it's just going to come down to how much the district wants to fight you. Going back to the last program where we talked about residential placement a little bit, and I said those placements cost between $10,000 and $20,000 a month. The school district is going to make a calculation. They're going to say the program costs $150,000 a year. He's a seventh grader. He's got 5 more years of school. So we're looking at $750,000. Right. That's a potential cost to the district. And the reason for that is once a child is at the private school or at the non-public school, it becomes much, much easier to, well, no, it becomes much, much more difficult for the public school to try to get the student back, because all the witnesses that know about the student are no longer public school employees. And so it can be very hard for the public school to take the student back. And so if you've got a potential $750,000 expenditure and you're the school district, it's easy to see how the marching instructions to the lawyer would be, I'll be really happy if I pay you $50,000 to make this go away. Yeah. And sometimes they play it that way and sometimes they don't. But I want you to understand the framework in which a dispute like this is playing out.
Wow, that's eye-opening. So if you're going to do this and you're hoping to be reimbursed, you have to have some patience packed.
Yes, you have to be in it for the long game. Yeah. And you also have to have an expert. And I mean, with the residential placements, most of the time, parents get to the breaking point and they just have no choice, and they do things they didn't think that they would ever consider doing, like they take out a loan from a relative, you know? I mean, it's not very easy when your choice is spend a whole bunch of money or risk the potential that your child's going to commit suicide. We've had children that have been moved from placement to placement using their insurance, but it keeps their body safe, but there's not necessarily going to be any progress in a situation like that. Right. And so parents really end up cornered with their backs up against a wall, and they have to do what we did in the old days with ABA, which is we mortgaged our houses to get the money to do the treatment, and it's horrible, but it's better than having a dead kid.
That's right. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but okay. Next time, are we done with this topic? And next time we're going to go on to injuries at school?
But we'll answer your questions about all of this, but we're done as far as a context for the increase in private placement cases in California and probably across the 50 states.
So tell us again, Bonnie, where we can reach Hirji and Chow.
So Hirji and Chow is at 310-391-0330. And if you're in Southern California, we'd love to have you call and we'll set up a consultation with you. And if not, we'll certainly try to point you in the right direction.
Wonderful. And then next week, we'll start talking about injuries at school.
We are going to follow up on the question asked by your listener last week or the week before about what happens when your child gets hurt at school and everybody's pretending it didn't happen.
Wonderful. All right. So thank you so much for being with us, Bonnie.
All right. Sweet.
Thank you. We're going to be right back after these messages. Stick with us. Parent to parent, one of the most frightening things there is when your child wanders away or elopes. This is when they leave an area without permission. And we know science has shown that over 50% of children on the autism spectrum will engage in this kind of behavior. But we don't have to just accept it as fact. There are things that we can do to teach our children how to appropriately ask when they want to go someplace. But before we can teach, we have to know why they're doing it. Are they wandering away to go to something, or are they wandering away to escape something? Really important that we know that. And once we do know that, then we can put in place these really effective teaching strategies. I want to remind you, though, that if your child is engaging in this kind of behavior, it's really important to work with an expert. Get professional help. They'll be able to effectively figure out why your child is doing it and put an intervention in place that's effective. And when you stop and think about it, there's nothing more important than keeping our children safe. You might be asking yourself, a BIP, what on earth is that? Welcome back to Autism Live. We are joined right now by the fabulous Michele Thorne. She is the founder of D.A.M.E.S, which stands for Differently Abled Mothers Empowerment Society. She is also a board member of the Autism Society of Greater Phoenix. And get ready for this. Before autism came to her house, I'm going to read this slowly because this is amazing. She has a bachelor's degree from Arizona State University in molecular bioscience and biotechnology, and a master's of science from Arizona State University. And she's worked as a geneticist at the Translation Genomic Research Institute and was published twice in peer-reviewed journals. Good heavens, woman. Welcome to Autism Live, and I know I'm late to the game, but I'm glad that you're a part of our autism community because we need more diverse moms like you who know about this kind of stuff, because this is how much I know about molecular bioscience and biotechnology. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being. And I can't wait to talk about all these different things. So, but you do identify yourself as having more than one child on the autism spectrum. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so both of my children have been diagnosed with autism. My son Jackson is 6 years old and needs a little bit more support. So he is still nonverbal, but communicates really well with his AAC device. He's actually just like any other kid on that device. Snarky, funny, is just a little sucker on that sometimes. We're like, really, Jackson? And he's like, yeah. And then my daughter is 3, and she was diagnosed last year, and she is a little bit more better functioning, so she doesn't need as much support. And it's really been very eye-opening to have both a boy and a girl, and needs more support, needs less support in my house, because I basically feel like I have the spectrum in my house.
Wow.
Which is really helpful when you're helping lots of different moms, because when my son was diagnosed, I had a very myopic view of what autism was. And then when my daughter was diagnosed, I was like, oh, like this is what the spectrum looks like. So it's been very eye-opening and very helpful, and it helps me relate to a lot of different kinds of moms.
Which is kind of incredible. So at what point did you decide to create D.A.M.E.S? Like, what was the thought process? How did this come about?
Yeah, so, like you said in your beginning, your intro, I have been very accomplished in my younger life. When my son was diagnosed with autism, I was actually teaching college-level genetics classes. And when he was diagnosed, he was nonverbal, he regressed, and it really just rocked my world. And I went from teaching adults genetics to not being able to teach my son how to speak. So it really makes you question a lot of things about yourself. You start to have that self-doubt. Your whole perception of who you are as a person just gets completely changed. So when that happened, I really fell into a very deep depression. And it took a long time to pull me out of it. And what really helped pull me out of it was giving back to myself, educating myself, giving back to myself, doing self-care techniques and tools. And once I got out of that, my eyes were really open, and I was like, why doesn't this exist? Why isn't there a company out there that sole focuses on giving back and giving care to the caregiver? Because the kids are going through it, and we're managing all of that. And so we are under enormous stress and pressure, and yet everything is focused on the child. But you see these parents, and I know because I was one of them, who are just falling apart, and yet there's no lifeline for them. And so I really wanted D.A.M.E.S to be a lifeline for other parents.
What an amazing, amazing thing. So so you created this. Let's talk a little bit about what D.A.M.E.S does and who can participate and how they participate.
Sure. So, of course, I went back to my research roots when I started thinking about D.A.M.E.S, started looking at different peer-reviewed journal articles to see what was really there in the research that helps parents. And what came up over and over again was this need for community, this need for Deep self-care. So I'm not talking about superficial, let's go take a bubble bath. Those are great. But how do you recenter yourself? How do you learn how to meditate and find that inner strength? So we do meditation Mondays. So every Monday, a new meditation gets dropped in to D.A.M.E.S, and they're stored there. So we've been doing this since January, which means that we have over 35, I think we have 39 meditations up right now that any mom can access at any time because it's all online or on our mobile app. The other thing that we offer is Wellness Wednesday. Wellness Wednesday is a Pilates or a yoga or a stretch class. So when my son from 0 to 3 didn't sleep, he slept for maybe 3 hours a night, so we were getting 3 hours of sleep a night. And I have always been athletic, and what saved me was going to Pilates or doing Pilates 2 or 3 times a week because it's not as intensive. A lot of the classwork is done on your back. Great, I can lay on my back and put my leg in the air and spin it around. I have that much energy, and it's time for yourself, right? And you're giving back to your body. So that's Wellness Wednesday. And then on Friday, for those who are really big fitness buffs, we do Fitness Friday, where we have a pre-recorded exercise program that's again released and added to the D.A.M.E.S, cycle of videos that you can choose from when you're doing self-care.
And this is all online.
It's all online. It's all online or on we have a mobile app too. So the mobile app has all of this because I really wanted to make sure it was available wherever they are. I mean, I've had days where I've driven my kids to therapy and, they're screaming the whole way there. And I get there and I just feel like I need to recenter. And so I will pull out my D.A.M.E.S app. I will open up a meditation and I will sit in the car and just try to ground myself again before I have to pick them up. And that's what it's all about, making self-care tools available to the parents wherever they are.
Okay, but all these things that you're talking about, I mean, I know because we do a show here, it's very time intensive and it's not cheap to put all that together. So there is a little bit of a cost, but it's very manageable. That it's so it's kind of a subscription to be able to have access to those things. Tell us a little bit about what the subscription is and how often you have to renew it.
Sure. So I just want to point out one other thing that we do. So we also do an education series, which is a webinar series. So we have people come on and talk about special needs trusts. They talk about how to travel with your special needs kids. So it's basically like going to a conference. We do them live, we record them, and we post them, so they're always available to our members. So when we talk about membership fees for D.A.M.E.S, it's $25 for the entire year, and that's it. The other thing that we offer is scholarships. So anybody, I know that this life is hard and it's taxing and it's expensive to pay for insurances and to maybe not be able to have a job and all of that. So we have never ever wanted money to be a roadblock to anybody's self-care. So we offer scholarships too. So that's always an option. And then we offer a sponsor a D.A.M.E.S. So even if you're not the person who has an autistic child, but you know somebody who might benefit from this, you can go on and sponsor a D.A.M.E.S and provide that self-care for someone in need.
Which is amazing. Okay, so I wish that I had known about this ahead of time because, we do a toy and gift guide every year, and there's a part of it where it's just for parents. And I absolutely would have featured D.A.M.E.S. And so I'm going to say to you right now, I want to feature it in next year's, in 2020's guide. Don't let me forget. Because I've already picked the winners for this year and had people vote and whatnot. But I would have included that because, honestly, when we want to give to an autism parent, we sat and talked, my team, and we're like, well, what do you want to give them? You want to give them time? You want to give them peace? You want to give them mindfulness and being centered, and you're talking about and self-care. So you're talking about all those things all in one app, and what a great gift to give a friend of yours who's an autism mom. What an incredible thing. So I love that idea, and I love the fact that it's available so that you can take it with you, because a lot of times all we have is our phone. And you are in the carpool lane, or you're waiting for your kid to come out of therapy, and that's the only time of the day that you get And, and instead of playing like a Candy Crush or whatever the current game is that people play, why not do a meditation? How long are your meditations, Michele?
Yeah, they're very short. They're 6 minutes to
Oh, that's,
15 minutes usually.
yes.
So they're meant to be so that it's something that you can kind of listen to very quickly and get recharged. The other great thing about the mom who does the meditation, so anytime I hire anybody for D.A.M.E.S, I always try to look within the community first. So the mother who does the meditations for D.A.M.E.S has children on the autism spectrum. So everything is really geared towards that special need mom because she knows exactly what we need to hear because she needs to hear it herself. So they're all very oriented to this community.
Wonderful. So if people wanted to subscribe or they want to buy something for somebody else, somebody they know or that they don't know, where do they go?
So they go to www.damesusa.com.
Okay, D.A.M.E.S. USA.com and $25 a year. Now, do you do it by a calendar year? So if somebody subscribes right now, then they renew in October of 2020?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So $25, you guys, to have that connection. And you're adding at least 3 things a week here that are touch points that Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But I'm guessing the meditation goes in on Monday, but if you don't have time till Saturday, it's available on Saturday, correct?
Oh, absolutely. So like I said earlier, we leave them up. So right now there's over 125 videos that are on the D.A.M.E.S website and the D.A.M.E.S app that are available to all of our members. And again, that's just, if you love this meditation, this is the one that you need today, you can always go back to your favorite meditation and listen to them again.
And the same thing with the fitness classes. So there's a new one on Wednesday, there's a new one on Friday. But if you're wanting a 5-day-a-week workout, you would just have to go into the archives and pick the one that you want. For $25
right.
a year, that's pretty amazing, you guys. And to know that it's geared towards you, mindful of the fact that you're working a different program than your friends are. There's just no two ways around that. Your friends are centered around Gymboree and their lives, and that is not your life right now. And to have access to a group of people and to these self-care things, it's really quite a value, Michele. I'm really excited for you.
Thank you.
So once again, so it's D.A.M.E.S USA at what? .com. .com. Okay. And I imagine that there is a place on there where they can click and say, contact us if they have questions, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Wonderful. Well, Michele, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, and thank you so much for being so clever and so smart. I guess it takes degrees, advanced degrees in molecular bioscience, biotechnology, and science to know how to take care of ourselves, because nobody else can crack the code on that, right? So thank you so much for doing that, and thank you for your work with D.A.M.E.S and with the Autism Society of Greater Phoenix.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much. It's, building D.A.M.E.S and doing D.A.M.E.S is a part of my self-care. And so it's a pleasure to serve this community and to meet all of these mothers. They are D.A.M.E.S, they are warriors. They're amazing, amazing people. And it's exciting to be a part of their lives.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your work. I'm going on there right now. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Okay, you guys, we're at the end of the show, unfortunately, but want to thank our guest, Michele Thorne, for being with us. And we are going to be back tomorrow. I need to give you guys the rundown for the week. You ready for this? So tomorrow it's Tuesday, and on Tuesday we run our best ofs. And I've been loving you guys' reaction to those. If there's something that you want to see, write in, because we usually do those a week or two in advance, and we'd love to know, like, what topics would you, that you missed or that you might not even know about, tell us and we'll go through our archives and find something. But that's tomorrow. Then on Wednesday, we have Evelyn Kung, who's going to be with us answering your questions in real time. On Thursday, we have autism expert Katie Shepard. And on Friday, for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, we'll have Vince Redmond, who's a licensed marriage and family therapist, with us. And we'll have Vanessa Leonard, who is an educational therapist, will be with us. And of course, we will give you our breakdown of everything that happened last night at D.A.M.E.S. You'll get to hear the whole shabu shaba, all the ins and outs of who was there, who wasn't there. I hope you guys tuned in, but if not, you can tune in on Friday to hear all the highlights of what happened. All right, so we'll be back tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.